Back at the hospital, doctors explained that Qahsiem's injuries were serious but survivable, thanks to immediate medical intervention. Surgeons worked to repair the damage, and his family began planning for long-term care and recovery. Questions swirled. Would he be able to eat normally again? Would his speech be affected? Would he ever feel safe outdoors again? The uncertainty hung over them like a heavy shadow, adding layers of emotional trauma to the already devastating physical wounds. But even as the hospital stabilized him, the story's tension wasn't over. Investigators dug into Cortez's past, uncovering a trail of social media threats, messages of anger, and prior disputes. Family members revealed arguments and confrontations that painted a picture of someone struggling to control violent impulses, especially when feeling rejected or disrespected. Cortez's actions ignited discussions nationwide about domestic disputes escalating into dangerous violence, especially when firearms are involved. Experts warned that words like, "I'm gonna shoot up the house," are never empty and must be treated as serious threats. Qahsiem's family became a face for those lessons, a tragic symbol of how quickly anger and unresolved conflict can destroy innocent lives in an instant. Just when it seemed the immediate crisis was over, another shock hit the family. Reports came in that Cortez had live-streamed parts of the confrontation online, capturing the tension before the shooting. The implications were horrifying. Not only had she allegedly shot a child, but the moments leading up to it were broadcast for anyone to see, turning private family tragedy into public spectacle. As Qahsiem lay in recovery, the story began to take a wider turn. Police investigations deepened, lawyers prepared legal strategy, and news outlets nationwide picked up the story. The little boy's life hung in the balance while the criminal justice system started moving into place, preparing to hold someone accountable for the horror that had just unfolded. But in the midst of legal reports and news coverage, one chilling reality remained. The person who caused this pain had not yet fully explained her motives, and the emotional fallout for everyone involved, the family, neighbors, and community, was far from over. The calm after the storm was only an illusion, and the next chapter of this story promised even more shocking revelations and twists. In the next chapter, we will uncover the legal battles, the aftermath for Qahsiem and his family, and the wider impact this shooting had on the community, including the haunting question, could this tragedy have been prevented? The story is far from over, and what comes next will leave you stunned. The courtroom was silent as the judge's gavel struck the wood. Every sound felt louder than it should be. Every breath felt heavy. On one side of the room sat Joanna Chalup Cortez, the woman accused of firing the shot. On the other side sat Qahsiem's family, holding each other close, still trying to understand how their lives had been ripped apart by one moment of rage. This was no longer just a shooting on a quiet street. This was now a battle for justice. Prosecutors stood and began to speak. Their words were slow, clear, and sharp. They explained that this was not an accident. They told the court about the threatening text messages, the words, "I'm going to shoot up the house." They described how Cortez had driven back to the home after the breakup, how she honked and yelled, and how she pulled out a gun and fired toward a place where children lived. Then came the hardest part. They spoke about Qahsiem, a 4-year-old boy, a child who loved to play, a child who had no idea what anger, breakups, or revenge meant. They explained how he had followed his uncle outside with his scooter, excited and smiling, and how that bullet struck him in the face. Some people in the courtroom lowered their heads, others wiped tears from their eyes. Even those who had seen violence before felt the weight of this moment. The defense argued next. They spoke of emotions running high, they spoke of stress, heartbreak, and poor decisions. But no matter what words they used, one truth could not be erased. A child was shot. The judge set strict conditions.
Cortez would remain behind bars. The bond stayed high, the charges were serious, and the court made it clear this case would not be treated lightly. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Reporters asked questions. The story spread across the country. Parents everywhere hugged their children tighter that night. Many asked the same question again and again. How could this happen? Back at the hospital, Qahsiem's recovery was slow and painful. Doctors explained that while he survived, the road ahead would be long. He had lost teeth. His face carried scars that would remind him of that day. Loud noises frightened him. He cried when doors slammed. Sometimes he refused to go outside at all. His family did everything they could to make him feel safe again. They read him stories. They stayed by his side at night. They promised him that he was protected, even when they themselves were struggling to believe it. Medical bills began to pile up. Therapy appointments became part of daily life. A fundraiser was created to help with costs, and strangers from across the country donated, leaving messages of love and support. Some wrote, "Stay strong, little hero." Others wrote, "Justice for Qahsiem." But no amount of money could erase the fear that had entered his world. As the weeks passed, investigators continued digging deeper. They reviewed phone records, social media posts, and security footage. Everything pointed back to the same chain of events: a breakup, a threat, and a gun. Experts spoke out, warning that threats must always be taken seriously, especially when emotions are high and weapons are involved. The neighborhood where the shooting happened was no longer the same. Parents watched the street more closely. Children were called inside earlier than before. Trust had been shaken. People whispered about how close they had all come to tragedy, or worse. And then came another painful realization. This shooting did not just hurt one child, it traumatized an entire community. As the case moved forward, the question of punishment loomed. How many years would justice demand? Would it ever feel like enough? For Qahsiem's family, the answer was complicated. They wanted accountability, but they also wanted healing. They wanted to know their child would grow up in a world that protected him better than it had that day. In quiet moments, Qahsiem would sometimes ask simple questions. Why did it hurt? Why did the loud noise happen? No answer ever felt good enough. As this chapter closes, the court process continues, and Qahsiem continues his fight to heal, one step, one smile, one brave moment at a time. His story is not just about violence, it is about survival. It is about how fast anger can destroy lives, and how strong a child can be in the face of unimaginable pain. And as the final verdict still waits in the future, one chilling reality remains. One threat, one decision, one shotgun, and a child's life was changed forever. The day of the final court decision arrived quietly, but the weight of it felt heavy in the air. Outside the courthouse, families walked past each other without speaking. Inside, the room filled slowly. Everyone knew this moment mattered, not just for the woman on trial, but for a little boy whose childhood had been torn apart by one moment of rage.
It was January 6, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. A day that should have been calm and ordinary for a small 4-year-old boy named Qahsiem Sinclair, but instead became the moment his life changed forever. Right in front of his home, Qahsiem was about to step outside with his bright, colorful scooter in hand when everything exploded in chaos. One second, he was about to take a simple breath of fresh air. The next, there was the sound of a gunshot that shook the walls of the neighborhood and changed his life forever. A bullet struck Qahsiem in the face, cutting through soft skin and knocking out several of his tiny teeth. In that instant, his world and the world of everyone who loved him was thrown into fear, pain, and confusion. Flames of worry lit up his family's hearts. Doctors rushed him into emergency surgery. Loved ones screamed, prayed, cried, and struggled to understand how something so terrible could happen to an innocent little boy who had only wanted to go outside and play. But the moment didn't just come out of nowhere. Behind that single gunshot were hours of rising tension, hurt feelings, angry text messages, and threats, all tied to one broken relationship. And just as Qahsiem was clinging to life in the hospital, another question burned in every mind. Why would someone do this? That's where this story truly begins, with what led up to that fateful moment, with the people involved, and with the painful chain of events that pushed a woman to the edge of violence. It started earlier that morning. A 29-year-old woman named Joanna Chalup Cortez had been in a relationship with a man who was family to Qahsiem. Around mid-morning, Cortez was with Qahsiem's mother and another woman, a person with her own connection to Cortez's boyfriend. Words were exchanged, feelings were hurt, voices grew louder. In the space of minutes, what might have been a small disagreement spiraled into a full argument, the kind that doesn't just fade away on its own. Then, in the heat of the moment, Cortez made a call. She said she was breaking up with her boyfriend and kicked him out of her house. The tension was now out in the open, raw and dangerous. Cortez and the two women then drove the now former boyfriend to the home where his brother lived with his girlfriend and young Qahsiem. They dropped him off and walked away like nothing more than tension left behind in a silent storm. Walking away, you might think that was the end, but for Cortez, it was only the beginning of a dangerous decision that would put an innocent life in danger. Later that day, something on social media sent flames roaring back into her heart, a live stream involving her former boyfriend and Qahsiem's family. The exact content of that live stream is unclear, but what matters most is how Cortez reacted to it. Anger flared, emotions boiled. Instead of walking away again, she got back into her car and drove straight to the apartment where the family was staying. When she arrived, she didn't just knock politely. She began honking loudly outside, yelling and demanding someone come out to talk to her. That moment was quiet on the surface, but underneath it, the storm inside her mind was raging, ready to burst. Then came the messages. Texts sent to Qahsiem's mother with terrifying words, including a threat that she was going to shoot up the house. Those weren't just empty words, they were warnings of something deadly. Security cameras captured what happened next, the moment where a choice that should never have been made was made anyway. Seconds after demanding someone come outside, Cortez pulled out what appeared to be a rifle from her vehicle. She pointed it at the home, and in a heartbeat, she pulled the trigger. No one expected what happened next. Instead of hitting the person she had been arguing with, that bullet found a small, unprotected child, Qahsiem, who thought his uncle was going outside and grabbed his scooter to follow him. The shot hit his face as he stood there, right there, unarmed and unaware of the danger. A moment that will stay burned in memory forever. And there it was. The sound that changed everything. The moment the bullet struck Qahsiem, the quiet street in Phoenix erupted into chaos. Neighbors ran to their windows, alarms blared, and the boy's mother screamed in disbelief. Qahsiem stumbled back, his small hands clutching his face as blood poured from his mouth and nose. The sound of sirens hadn't even reached the distance yet, but the shock and panic were deafening. Time seemed to slow for everyone watching. Neighbors frozen in horror, the mother trembling uncontrollably, and little Qahsiem, unsure of what had just happened, crying in pain and fear. Somehow, in those terrifying seconds, the instinct to protect kicked in. A nearby neighbor grabbed Qahsiem and held him tight while dialing 911, reporting a child shot in the face. Every second mattered, every heartbeat counted. The ambulance arrived quickly, lights flashing, doors swinging open as paramedics carefully placed Qahsiem on a stretcher. His tiny body shook from shock and pain as they rushed him into the vehicle, racing to the hospital. Meanwhile, back at the scene, Joanna Chalup Cortez remained in her car for a moment, her hands shaking. Witnesses say she did not attempt to flee immediately,
leaving the chilling possibility that she understood the gravity of what she had done. Police arrived minutes later, surrounding the vehicle, while neighbors whispered in disbelief. "Why would someone do this?" one woman muttered, shaking her head. Others spoke of Cortez's anger over the breakup, but even with that context, the act felt unfathomable, incomprehensible, and cruel. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically to stabilize Qahsiem, assessing the bullet's path and the damage it caused. The tiny boy, only 4 years old, underwent emergency surgery. His family waited anxiously in the corridor, hearts pounding with fear. Every tick of the clock was agonizing. Family members described a surreal mix of relief that he was alive and terror for what the bullet had taken from him: some teeth, the soft tissue in his face, and a sense of safety that would never return to the same extent. While Qahsiem fought for his life, law enforcement tracked down Cortez. Within hours, she turned herself in, appearing at the Maricopa County Jail. She was booked on multiple charges, including aggravated assault and discharging a firearm at a residence, facing a bond set at $500,000. Court records indicate authorities were taking the incident seriously, given the age of the victim and the reckless nature of the shooting. Even as police processed the scene and collected evidence, the neighborhood struggled to regain a sense of normalcy. Parents pulled children indoors, whispers of fear spread from house to house, and social media posts circulated showing the security footage of the shooting, a chilling reminder that violence can erupt anywhere, even in familiar places. For many, the most painful part wasn't just the act itself, but the innocence that had been shattered. Qahsiem had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, a casualty of someone else's anger.
Qahsiem did not sit in the courtroom. His family chose to protect him from the noise, the faces, and the memories. Instead, he stayed home, surrounded by toys and familiar voices, trying to live a life that now felt very different from before. Even though he was not there, everything in that room was about him. The judge spoke clearly and firmly. The charges were read again. The evidence was reviewed one last time: the threats, the gun, the shot, the injury. There was no confusion about what had happened. This was a real event, a real crime, and a real child had suffered. When the sentence was finally announced, the room went silent. The punishment could never undo the damage. It could never give Qahsiem back the moment he lost his innocence. But it was the system's way of saying something important. What happened was wrong, and it mattered. Some family members cried, others closed their eyes. No one celebrated. Justice, in cases like this, never feels like a victory. It feels like a heavy ending to a story that never should have begun. After court, life moved forward, slowly. Qahsiem continued therapy. Some days were good. He laughed, played, and smiled like any other child. Other days were hard. Sudden sounds made him jump. Nightmares woke him up crying. His family learned to measure time differently now, not by days, but by progress. One step without fear, one night of sleep without tears, one moment of peace. Doctors said his body would heal, but his heart would need time, a lot of time. The family spoke out publicly, not for attention, but for warning. They wanted other parents to hear their message. Threats are never just words. Anger can turn deadly fast, and children always pay the highest price. Across the country, people watched the story and felt the same shock. Many asked themselves uncomfortable questions. What if this had happened on their street? What if their child had stepped outside at the wrong moment? That question stayed with everyone who heard Qahsiem's story. As months passed, the headlines faded, but the pain did not. True crime stories often end when the court case ends, but real life does not work that way. Real victims wake up every day carrying what happened with them.
Qahsiem will grow older. He will go to school. He will make friends. And one day, he will learn the full truth of what happened to him. His family hopes that when that day comes, he will also know this, that he survived, that he was loved, that people stood up for him, and that his story helped others understand how dangerous unchecked anger can be. This case is not just about a crime. It is about responsibility. It is about choices. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. And as we close this story, one final thought remains, a thought that should never be forgotten. A breakup ends relationships. A gun ends futures. And a child should never be caught between the two. If this story stayed with you, if it made you pause, think, or feel, then it has done something important. Because remembering real events like this is how we honor victims, and how we make sure the world never looks away again.